So I was reached out the other day by someone who's also going to be an intern at Amazon. So he said, do you mind telling me about your internship experience at AWS as an SDE? I just want to get a general idea of what it'd be like. I said, hey, what do you want to know? You've provided a very vague question, right? Because I can say a lot. I can really say a lot. He told me that a lot of my anxiety is just coming from the fact that I'm in the dark about the internship. So I'm not too sure how I can be best prepared. And I asked him, what specifically is making you anxious? And he tells me that it's low-key imposter syndrome, right? And just because I grind leak code doesn't mean I'm a good dev. So I'm just worried about securing the return offer and learning as much. So if you're also like this person, stick along. We will talk about this further now. And hopefully I can convince you that you really have nothing to worry about. So let's just start by breaking this down a little bit. The worry is about securing a return offer, and it's about learning as much as possible. Now, when it comes to securing the return offer, we will need to be learning. There's a few things that we will have to do. And along the way, we'll also mention that you will also have to be learning as much as possible. Okay, let me start by just explaining kind of the three main pieces of advice that I would give to an intern. And this is the same advice that I've given to this person now, right? And I just hope that this video is a good reflection and a good thing to go back to as a resource. Okay, so let's talk about the first thing which I want to say is to document. And it's not just documenting code reviews, for example, but it's documenting almost every piece of work that you've ever done. And documenting is a way to show most, if not everything that you've done. I don't think I've explained that very well just right. One of the pieces of advice that I would give is to document everything. Okay, that includes documenting your code reviews, right, or your pull requests. And by documenting those, it's pretty obvious, right? Just to explain what kind of improvement this code makes. You want to definitely format it well and describe things well in those code reviews. Because when you go back to those code reviews, when you go back or somebody else goes back to those code reviews, it would just look good for you as the person who wrote it. And it will also help you understand what you did in the past, right? Everything you write is a history, right? Everything you document is a history of your work. So it's good to document as much as possible so that you can get as fine-grained as you can with the work that you do, and you don't question yourself how much you've done in the past week, month, year, right? Document reviews is a good thing, right? But I guess this also means to document your work, all the stuff that you've done. Document everything like your work tasks. You want to document all of those. You want to maybe even keep a to-do list, right? So this might be a to-do list itself, or it could be a work summary. And the work summary actually is one thing that is extremely helpful because it becomes useful in your performance reviews later. Now that's beyond just internship, but if you practice this now in an internship, then when it'll definitely save you the hassle in the future when you come back to the company with that return offer. Right? The other aspect is you also want to document all the things that you've learned, right? So without writing things out, it's hard to remember what you've learned at Amazon or at any other company. So one thing you want to do is document your learnings, right? So documenting your learnings here would mean that you can go back to this notebook, this document, and relearn if you have to, right? And you can relearn it faster because you have previously written about this before. Now, this is the same thing with how I currently do a lot of my other learnings as well. So if I'm learning leak code, right? This is out of context of work, but the same principle applies. If I had a leak code question that I am in Notion right now, I'm in Obsidian right now. And if I go to just a leak code problem, longest substring without repeating characters, I have some information on how to solve this problem. well, this is kind of a bad example, but the idea is, okay, I know time complexity is O of n, space complexity is O of n, used for a set. And from that, I can kind of relearn this problem using these tips that I've given myself. And it should effectively be the insight of the problem. So I think if I find something better, I think that'd be great. So let's say longest palindromic substring. All right, so look, like one of my insight was dynamic programming method is slightly worse with O of n squared time and space. I'd have to kind of dive deep again to fully understand this, but I've written my insight here to say what I did with the problem, right? Okay, back to this. So make sure you document your learnings, right? Because then you can go back to them and understand them again. The next point I want to make is we want to learn and be curious, right? So this is itself an Amazon leadership principle, but as an intern, you really need to learn and be curious. And this is something that when I asked my onboarding buddies and my manager, like what is the leadership principle that would take me the furthest during this internship, they all said it was learn and be curious. And that's because these managers, well, everybody on your team doesn't expect you to know everything in the beginning. And when it comes to learning and being curious, you have to show that quality during the internship in order to get that return offer. There is no situation where you cannot show this leadership principle in order to get through to the end of the internship with an offer. And here's the thing, right? You don't have to learn deeply. You don't have to learn deeply. And the reason is that there is so much content at Amazon that trying to go deep into everything will be really bad, because just going deep into one concept at Amazon could potentially take up the whole internship, right? And this is not only a problem that I've seen for interns, but it's also for grads as well. People, new grads, they come in, and I've noticed sometimes that some grads don't even understand why they are researching one thing, or in what value does it provide to themselves. And I've seen cases where the manager tells the new grad to dive deep into something. Right? Dive deep, by the way, is a leadership principle as well, but they dive deep, too deep, to the point where it's 3 to 4 days long, and 3 to 4 days long of diving deep, and with no outcome at the end of it, and sometimes even getting really close to an outcome, but not fully producing something that's of value to the team. And to that, what one needs to do in this case is to not look at things too deeply. And how to not look at things too deeply is by understanding why you're doing it in the first place, why you're learning about something in the first place, and then taking the appropriate abstraction level out of it, right? For example, one thing at Amazon that I've learned is their API standards. So there is this framework which allows you to define APIs, right? And you use this API framework to create APIs for other services. Now, I don't need to go deep into kind of creating my own API and going through the tutorials to understand how this API framework works, but I need to see how I can apply it to my own internship project. And for me, I had to use it to create a new API. Right? So I did create a new API, not from the tutorial that this API framework had, but I created an API for my own internship project. Right? So, okay, so I've said a lot of APIs here, but let me just kind of summarize. So this is an API framework, right? Framework, right? Whatever. It's an API framework. There are a fuck ton of documents, right, that describe how you could use this API framework. Okay. All right. So for those that missed it, there's a learn and be curious. You don't have to learn things deeply, right? All you need to know is how to create an API. You only need one part of this whole document, right? You just need one section of this whole document, how to create an API. Cool. Anything else with learn and be curious? I don't see anything else at the moment. Yeah, so I mean, this method itself is also kind of called the black box method, where you don't need to understand how things are done internally, but you need to know how they can be used. And that's something that another grad that I know of did very well. And he was the one that explained that concept to me as well. Right, so let me just write here, black box method. Okay, the third and final thing I needed to discuss here was to communicate and be reflective. All right, so when it comes to the people you work with, at least at Amazon, and I'm sure in every other big tech, you'll be assigned an onboarding buddy as well as your manager. And I think there is also a project advisor. No, there is definitely always a project advisor. And they are the ones that kind of, your onboarding buddy is the first point of contact when it comes to understanding how to do something at Amazon or at any other big tech. You ask them for help as much as possible, right? And you can be annoying about it, as long as you are also the right type of annoying. So I would say be the right type of annoying. And what that means is to not ask lazy questions. When it comes to asking questions, we have to formulate them in the right way. There is a document, which I can link in the description, which goes around asking good questions. And asking good questions means you take the effort to understand the problem, say what you have tried to do to fix the problem, and effectively make it easy for the answerer to answer your problem. And if you make it easy for other people, it looks good on you, and it also means that you're not wasting their time. And another thing to note is the more time you waste of someone else who is higher in the ladder, the less the less good it looks on you, right? That's also something that I've been told by a senior software engineer, and I've hopefully taken that to heart. I don't know if he was the one telling me that because I was kind of being annoying or not, but that is the scenario. For an onboarding buddy, your onboarding buddy is usually not a senior software engineer, so you can be slightly less sharp, but you still should be sharp about the questions you ask. And that's just about asking questions. Now, when it comes to talking about career growth or talking about anything related to the worries you have about the internship, the anxiety that you have, just like this person, the imposter syndrome that you have, these are all questions that are very good to be directed to your manager, right? So I won't call it imposter syndrome questions. I'll call this career growth question, right? And you direct these to your manager because they are the ones managing you, I suppose. They are usually also quite knowledgeable in what to do next or how you can kind of put yourself back on track. You can also mention this to your onboarding buddy if you want to. And it just depends on the level of closeness that you are with your onboarding buddy. But you can also be the instigator of that level of closeness. You can be the one to kind of be vulnerable and ask your onboarding buddy, hey, I don't necessarily feel like I'm good enough. Can you tell me how I can be better? And what are the pieces of advice that you would give to someone who has imposter syndrome, right? And maybe you say it in the tense that I just said it in, like third person perspective. Sorry, not tense. You could say it in a third person perspective rather than first person. Hey, I have imposter syndrome, right? If that sounds a little too straightforward. But in any case, you should feel comfortable speaking about these things with your onboarding buddy and your manager and anyone else around you that are working with you in your team. And you can definitely do that by just having one-on-ones, right? So another thing that you will be told to do during your onboarding plan is to have one-on-ones with members of your team. And by having these one-on-ones, you can get an understanding of what your coworkers are doing, and also you can ask them about career growth questions as well. You can have a try. Some people don't like speaking about it, or some people may find it weird, but regardless, it's still worth trying to ask, and it doesn't really look bad on you at all. Okay, so I think that's all that I have to say. Yeah, so I think this is all I have to say for anyone who's starting an internship. If you can do these 3 things, then I think you're set, and your confidence. And again, for you, my friend, who is worried about learning as much as possible, just do it. By the way, this is just all my opinion. See ya.